ASP.NET Core Interview Questions and Answers. Beginner means advanced. Introduction. ASP.NET Core is a modern, high-performance, cross-platform web framework developed by Microsoft for building web applications, REST APIs, and microservices. ASP.NET Core is widely used for check. Web applications, REST APIs, microservices, cloud-native applications, enterprise systems, backend development. ASP.NET Core provides cross-platform support, cross-platform injection, cross-middleware pipeline, high performance, cloud integration. 1 to 20. ASP.NET Core Basics. What is ASP.NET Core? ASP.NET Core is a cross-platform web framework for building modern web applications and APIs. Who developed ASP.NET Core? Microsoft. Why use ASP.NET Core? High performance, cross-platform, lightweight architecture, cloud-ready ASP.NET versus ASP.NET Core. ASP.NET Core is cross-platform and redesigned for modern development. What platforms support ASP.NET Core? Windows, Linux, macOS. What is Kestrel? Built-in cross-platform web server. What is middleware in ASP.NET Core? Component handling HTTP requests, responses in pipeline. Middleware example, app.use, async, context, next, await next. What is request pipeline? Sequence of middleware processing requests. What is program.cs? Application startup and configuration entry point. Basic ASP.NET Core app example. var builder equals web application.create builder args. var app is builder.build, app.run. Providing dependencies externally. Why use dependency injection? Class, loose coupling, easier testing, maintainability. Service registration example. Builder.services.add-scoped, iUserService, user service. What is controller in ASP.NET Core? Handles incoming HTTP requests. Controller example. API controller, public class user controller, controller base. What is routing? Mapping URLs to controllers' actions. Route example. Route API users. Standard HTTP response abstraction. iAction result example. Return OK users. 21 to 40. REST APIs and MVC. What is REST API? HTTP-based backend communication interface. HTTP-based backend communication interface. Post, put, delete. Get endpoint example. HTTP get. Post endpoint example. HTTP post. What is model binding? Mapping HTTP request data to objects. What is validation in ASP.NET Core? Checking request data correctness. Validation attribute example. Required. What is model state? Stores validation state. Validation check example. If model state is valid. What is MVC architecture? Model, view, controller. What is Razor Pages? Page-based web application model. What is Razor syntax? @model.name. What is ViewBag? Dynamic object passing data to views. Model tailored for UI view requirements. What is partial view? Reusable view fragment. What is layout page? Shared page template. What is API versioning? Managing API evolution safely. API version example. API version 1.0. What is content negotiation? Returning response format requested by client. JSON, XML, 41 to 70. Entity Framework Core, authentication and middleware. What is Entity Framework Core? ORM framework for .NET applications. What is DB context? Main database interaction class. DB context example. Public class app DB context, DB context. What is migration in EF Core? Database schema change management. Add migration command. .NET EF migrations add. Initial update database command. .NET EF database update. What is link? Querying collections/databases using C# syntax. Link example. Context.users.where x equals x active. What is authentication? Verified user identity. What is authorization? Controlling user access permissions. What is JWT authentication? Token-based stateless authentication. JWT configuration example. Builder.services.add authentication. What is OAuth 2? Authorization Framework for Secure Access. What is identity in ASP.NET Core? Membership Authentication Framework. What is cookie authentication? Session-based browser authentication. What is CORS? Cross-origin resource sharing. CORS configuration example. Builder.services.add CORS. What is exception middleware? Global error handling middleware. Exception handling example. app.useExceptionHandler/error. What is logging in ASP.NET Core? Recording application events errors. Common logging providers? Console, Serilog, Nlog. What is configuration system? Centralized application configuration management. Common configuration sources? Cool. appsettings.json. Environment variables. Secrets appsettings.json example. Connection strings out. What is dependency lifetime? Singleton, scoped. Transient, singleton, versus scoped, versus transient. Different service instance lifetimes. What is async await? Asynchronous programming mechanism. Async controller example. Public async task, action result, get. Why use async APIs? Scalability, non-blocking I/O. What is background service? Long-running hosted service. 71 to 100. Advanced ASP.NET Core concepts. What is hosted service? Background process managed by application host. Hosted service example. Background service. What is minimal API? Lightweight API approach, introduced in .NET 6. Minimal API example. app.mapget, hello. What is Swagger Open API? API documentation framework. Swagger setup example. Builder services.add Swagger gen. What is health check? Endpoint monitoring application health. Health check example. Builder.services.add health checks. What is caching in ASP.NET Core? CAT. Memory cache. Distributed cache. What is Redis caching? Distributed in-memory cache solution. What is SignalR? Real-time communication framework. SignalR use cases. Chat apps, live dashboards, notifications. What is gRPC? High-performance RPC framework. What is microservice architecture? Small, independently deployable services. What is Docker support in ASP.NET Core? Containerized application deployment. Docker file example. From mcr.microsoft.com.net ASP.NET 8.0. What is Kubernetes deployment? Running ASP.NET Core apps in clusters. COS. Middleware. COS. Dependency injection. COS. Authentication. COS. EF Core. COS. REST APIs. Common ASP.NET Core problems. COS. Dependency scope issues. COS. Performance bottlenecks. COS. Authentication errors. Best practices for ASP.NET Core. Use async programming. Centralized exception handling. Dependency injection. What is performance optimization? Response caching. Async APIs. Efficient database queries. What is unit testing in ASP.NET Core? Testing controllers, services independently. Common testing tools? Check XUnit, NUnit, mock. What is integration testing? Testing multiple components together. What is CI/CD for ASP.NET Core? Automated builds, automated deployment. Common CI/CD tools? Azure DevOps, GitHub Actions, Jenkins. How to become strong in ASP.NET Core? Build APIs. Practice DI and middleware. Learn cloud deployment. Biggest ASP.NET Core interview concept? Middleware pipeline and dependency injection architecture. Key ASP.NET Core interview focus. REST APIs, DI, middleware, EF Core, authentication and scalability. Why is ASP.NET Core popular? High performance, modern architecture, and strong cloud-native support. ASP.NET Core interviews focus on ERC, middleware pipeline, REST API development, dependency injection, entity framework core, authentication and authorization, async programming, cloud-native deployment, performance optimization. Key idea. Strong ASP.NET Core developers understand scalable backend architecture, dependency injection, middleware design, and modern cloud-ready API development.